How's it going? I'm Andrew with InvestorsHub.com, and it's TED Tuesday, so we're talking with Ted Ohashi, and he writes the Cannabis Report, which is put out on InvestorsHub.com. And we're finally seeing some interesting legislation movement happening in the cannabis industry, but it's not from the legislations that already exist. It was a new one that popped up, Nancy Mace and her States Reform Act. We're going to be talking about that. He's going to share a company in his model portfolio that he thinks is going to do well if any of these bills manage to make it all the way through, and also a little bit on JP Morgan Chase and their decision to cut off cannabis investing. So if you like the video, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. You can follow us on Twitter at ihub_vision. We've also made an Investors Hub Market Vision Facebook group if you're on Facebook. And yeah, let's hear from Ted. Please note that our videos are not designed to be direct investing advice. Our channel and our content should just be one stop on the journey of trying to find out where to put your money. So a new cannabis bill popped up in the House of Representatives down here in the States. Nancy Mace and her States Reform Act, which is kind of a vague name for a cannabis-related bill. And yeah, it's a lot like a lot of other cannabis bills that we've seen, though according to, I think, Marijuana Moment, I believe is where I got the article from. It's a little bit more conservative than some other bills like Chuck Schumer's. And the market rallied to the idea, right? They're happy to see another cannabis bill pop up. Do you think that that's an appropriate response from the market?
Well, actually, I don't. I think that I looked into this a little bit. She's a very junior representative. She only took office last year. So, when you think about, say, her going up against Pelosi or anybody else in the House, it seems a little bit far-fetched that she would be able to get something done. But having said all of that, I think that it shows that, first of all, there is interest in cannabis reform legislation on the part of Republicans, and this lady's a Republican. I still think moving ahead in little bits and pieces like the Safe Banking Act and the MORE Act is the better way to go. Chuck Schumer wants to go with an all-encompassing, do everything in total kind of approach, and that's going to be a much tougher sell. So it kind of puts you in a difficult spot. So I guess at this point, I think I'm glad to see that this bill has come forward. It indicates interest on the part of some Republicans. I don't think the problem's in the House. The House has passed the Safe Banking Act and the MORE Act and all of these things. So the problem's in the Senate, and right now, the person that's blocking short-term progress is Schumer, and for the time being, he's got his hands full. He's got a lot of big fish to fry, but nevertheless, I think in the spring something will happen, and I think Schumer will have a tough time selling his all-encompassing bill, and so we may end up where we should have been now or 3 months ago with these smaller bills going through.
Your thoughts on how the House of Representatives has been the place that the cannabis legislation has always been popping out of was my first thought too, right? Whenever I saw the news, I was like, oh, this can't be news, right? Because, oh, it's another bill coming out of the House. But the cannabis market was like, oh, thank God, anything happening at all.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there was a little bit of that for sure. And I think it's indicative of how low cannabis stock prices have fallen. And I think, at this point, they're very, very attractive. Right now, as we move toward Christmas, there's going to be tax loss selling in the cannabis sector. I mean, all the stocks are down, and some of them are down a lot so far this year. And while the major markets, the Dow and the S&P are all up and up strongly. So there's profits over there, and capital losses can offset those taxable capital gains. So I think there's going to be tax loss selling in the cannabis stocks, but after that's over, which will be around Christmas time, then I think we'll see a big bounce in the group.
So you write the Cannabis Report, which is put out on Investors Hub. And in that publication, you've got a model portfolio where you follow a bunch of different cannabis companies. So if we see some positive banking legislation from the cannabis industry, like, say, the Safe Banking Act, but Chuck Schumer's omnibus bill would be good to see as well. If we see any of that positive legislation, which one of those companies do you think would benefit the most?
Well, I mean, I think it has to be of my group, a company called Jushi, JUSH. It is a multi-state operator, which means it's vertically integrated. It is involved in cultivation and distribution. And in a number of states, they just opened their 25th or 26th store. And they're projected to have revenues in the year ahead of around $400 million, which means it's trading at 2 times market cap. I mean, 2 times sales, which is not bad. And so I think that stock will perform well. When this news came out, it was certainly the most explosive in my group. And that's what I would have expected. So, yeah, Juicy's the name that you would look at. But there are a number of multi-state operators. Some of them are very large, and Trulieve, Green Thumb, Cureleaf, all of those companies. And some of them are $6 to $9 billion market caps. And so a company like Juicy, which is well managed, it's growing rapidly, probably among the top 10% in terms of growth expected for 2022 in the multi-state operator group. I think that that Juicy's a really great play if you're expecting some progress on the legislative front.
So did any of the other companies in the model portfolio react to the news from the House of
Sure. I
Representatives?
mean, yeah. If positive legislation goes through, it will help the entire industry. There's no question about it. As they say, when the tide comes in, it lifts all the boats. And so it will be very good for the cannabis group as a whole, but it will be particularly good for companies that actually have revenues, may have positive cash flow, may have profits, because these are the companies that need things like the Safe Banking Act, for example, so they can have bank accounts so that customers can come in and make their purchases with their MasterCards or their Visas. And so, those are the companies that will probably benefit the most. But if that happens, and particularly if something like Schumer's bill goes through, the whole industry will get a lift.
So there was some kind of odd negative news that came out in general about the cannabis industry, and that was JP Morgan preventing people from buying cannabis companies on their platforms, but they allowed people to liquidate their shares. It's kind of like that whole Robinhood affair that happened with GameStop and whatnot, but not for the same reasons. And so I was wondering, like, if we see all this positive legislation floating around the legislature, we see that this is probably the best chance that cannabis is going to have to see some positive legislation for a while. And public opinion of cannabis is at an all-time high. So then why are these sort of old guard bankers still playing their cards so close to their chest and preventing people from trading in these companies? Doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, well, yeah, the timing is kind of odd. A year or two ago, or 3 years ago, there was a fair amount of that going on. Off air, we were talking about canopy growth, which is one of the leading cannabis companies in the world. But and I think about 3 or 4 years ago, the Royal Bank, which is the largest bank in Canada, closed their bank accounts. And but at that time, it made a little more sense. Cannabis was still not as widely accepted as it is now. It was a new industry, a growth industry. People weren't certain how it was all going to turn out. Now, I think, we've jumped over all those hurdles. And so I agree with you. I think the timing of doing something like that is, it's a little bit odd.
So, do you have any final thoughts?
No, my thoughts are that the cannabis stocks will probably stay a little bit quiet until around Christmas. As I say, we'll be going into tax loss selling season, or in this year we may already be in it. And then after that, I would say between Christmas and New Year's, the stocks will probably have explosive performance. And it's kind of like what happened last year. I think between Christmas and the middle of February last year, most of the cannabis indexes were up like 40%. And so that's the kind of thing that we can look forward to. So it's been a difficult year for cannabis investors, but sunny skies are ahead.
So, do you have positions in any of the companies mentioned, or are you compensated by them?
No, I'm not.
Hey, thanks for watching, and be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you like our videos. Best way to help us grow is interacting with them. YouTube algorithm loves it when you do that. And as a side note, I'm making a video on Ethereum 2.0, so cryptocurrency and cannabis, which is the YouTube algorithm's two favorite things. But yeah, the Ethereum 2.0 video is in the works. It's something that I think is really cool, so I'm going to make an explainer video on what that is and the changes that are going to be coming to the Ethereum blockchain in the coming months. So yeah, I'll see you again soon.